The LA Chargers, man, this team has some huge expectations going into the 2023 NFL season, man. And when you look at the fact that they drafted Quentin Johnston in the first round, and you got Kellen Moore as your offensive coordinator, that lets you know everything that you need to know about what this offense is going to be this year. Justin Herbert isn't going to be throwing checkdowns anymore in a conservative offense. Kellen Moore is going to let him throw that thing downfield. And you got Quentin Johnston, who, according to some reports, has already beat out Joshua Palmer for the wide receiver 3 spot. So throughout training camp, we're probably going to see if the hype is real, because you already know how it be with all these rookies. Like, I don't really be seeing too many negative articles about these rookies on social media. Like, everybody's looking like a future Hall of Famer according to the reports we be seeing about these rookies throughout mini camp. But training camp is really where we're going to start to see what receivers are going to start getting weaved out. Because, you know, when them pads get put on, that's where, you know, the real football is played. That's where you get to see who the real football players is. So we're going to be seeing about Quentin Johnston, how he is able to keep up this hype and attention throughout training camp, and then see if he can make some plays in the preseason. Now, I do like Quentin Johnston a lot, but, you know, at the same time, I still want to see, you know, if he's going to be the hype, and if he's going to be worth up to that first round billing that the Chargers drafted. So next up at running back, you got Austin Eckler. But it's like, who else is going to be running back 2 behind him? So we're going to have to see how that's going to turn out. And then we got to talk about this position battle. So they got a free safety battle with a guy named Gilman. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his first name at all, versus JT Woods. Now, Gilman started a couple of games for the Chargers last year, and a lot of fans really like what they saw from him, and they're really confident that he's going to be able to come in and replace Nazir Adderley. And even if Nazir Adderley never would have retired, and if they would have brought him back, from the way they make it seem like they was going to have a position battle this offseason to determine who was going to be the starter at that position anyway. So this is somebody that the coaching staff really likes. They got confidence in, but they do have JT Woods, who's going into his second season. He was drafted in the 3rd round out of Baylor, and he started 1 game last year, but he still needs a lot of work. And he didn't really get a lot of reps last year anyway. So it's probably going to be Gilman's job to lose, unless JT Woods just goes crazy and, you know, maybe Gilman goes down with an injury that he has to sit out for a large portion of camp, and JT Woods just runs away with the job. Now, who's going to be wide receiver 3 and 4? Because, I mean, Quentin Johnston, if these minicamp reports are actually accurate, is actually going crazy right now, and he's already jumped over Joshua Palmer. So if that is true, what's going to happen with Jalen Guyton and Joshua Palmer? Now, Jalen Guyton missed most of last season with a torn ACL injury, which was unfortunate to him, because Joshua Palmer was really good when Mike Williams and Keenan Allen weren't on the field, and when they was missing time with injuries. And he was really consistent, and he was really good, because I was playing against one of my friends who had him on his fantasy football roster in the championship. So he's a pretty productive wide receiver. He'll probably end up being the wide receiver 4. And for Jalen Guyton, you know, he might end up trying to fight for his spot on the roster potentially if he doesn't really have a good showing in training camp this year. Man, I can't believe I called Mike Williams Mike Evans, man. My bad. I can't believe I did that. It's crazy. Now, we got to look at how the offensive line depth is going to play out during training camp, because you guys already know the LA Chargers had hella injuries on the offensive line. It was like injury after injury after injury, like after injury. Like, I don't know how they made it to the playoffs with all those injuries on the offensive line. Like, they had Storm Norton as one of their starting offensive tackles, man, and he was one of the worst offensive tackles in the NFL last season, according to Pro Football Focus and a lot of metrics that I've been looking at. And basically if Storm Nor was starting at offensive tackle for you, good luck, because you was going to need it, man, because the way some of these sites were talking about him, Storm Norton was not good. And I think he's with the Saints now. So, woo. So you got to see how your right tackle position is going to look. And then also the fact that, you got a lot of guys coming back from injury. So they're going to have to get back into building that chemistry, that communication with each other. And then hopefully you got good depth behind your starters. So if unfortunately you have another injury on the offensive line, you have some good players that can come in and at least be serviceable and not as bad as what it was last year. I don't know how they made it to the playoffs. Now, my players to watch for the Chargers throughout training camp, Kenneth Murray, man, man, I had high expectations for Kenneth Murray when he was coming out of Oklahoma, man. Come on, if you're a Chargers fan, you gotta be honest. How you feeling about Kenneth Murray right now? Is it fair to say, he's the B-U-S-T? Is it safe to use that word? Or is it a little bit too soon? You still holding out hope? Because, I thought Kenneth Murray was going to be a lot better than what he's shown right now. And he's not really great in coverage at all. So it's in training camp, it's you kind of want to see, a lot of good things out of him. You're hoping that he can end up putting it all together. The athleticism is still there, but it's this dude is a former first-round pick, and if he doesn't end up popping off this year, it probably could be it for him as far as him being an LA Charger. I don't know. And then you got to look at the fact that at cornerback, you have J.C. Jackson. Depending on how he goes with his health and whatnot, hopefully we get to see what he can do in training camp, because before he went down with that injury, oh my God, things were not looking good for him. It was looking like the LA Chargers got a really big whiff at free agency with him. So hopefully he can get back healthy and we can see him in training camp a little bit and we can see what he can do. Because I don't know how you just fall off like that unless, you was really getting hidden by the system. Jesus, but I think JC Jackson can bounce back. I like JC Jackson and I actually like his story. So he seems like one of those guys who's capable of being able to bounce back. I don't think he's going to be one of those guys to just be terrible, but hopefully he can go in training camp and we can see what he's capable of. Now, I'm going to be paying attention to Max Duggan. Now, the only reason I'm really paying attention to Max Duggan is because, Max Duggan is one of those guys that, even though people may look at him and say, oh, he's not all that good, he's one of those people that put in the work. He's a scrappy quarterback. He's a fighter. He's a tough guy. So he's going to be one of those guys that's just going to be able to stick around, I just think, some way, somehow. And plus, he's probably a good guy that you want in your locker room. So I want to see how he's going to look in preseason, how he's going to look in training camp, because he is going to get opportunities right now. And he probably could compete with Easton Stick for the second quarterback job behind Justin Herbert. So I really like Max Duggan. This dude started out last year around this time as the backup, and then the starter ended up getting hurt, and then he ended up putting up a Heisman season, and he wasn't bad. He does have some really good mobility, and like I said, he's one of those guys that puts in a lot of work. He's going to be one of the first guys in, last guy out. So I want to see what he's going to show throughout training camp in the preseason for the LA Chargers. I think he's going to be one of those Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of guys that just finds a way to stick around, and he'll just be like a journeyman, like a fringe backup kind of guy, but sometimes he'll come in and give you a spark because he do work hard, and the league isn't always about talent. Sometimes it's also about guys who show intangibles. Shoot, look at Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant from last year.